I'm Dave Mahon. I'm the Vice President and Chief Security Officer at CenturyLink, and there'll be 5 other speakers that I will introduce. And the way we will be doing this today is each one of us will speak for about 20 minutes, and then we will introduce the new speaker, and then for the remaining 10 minutes of our 30, if you have any questions, we'll certainly answer your questions while the other speaker is getting ready. Jennifer is orchestrating this. I met with her this morning, and when I met with her, I had told her, well, look, this is actually an executive level threat briefing that I provide to our key leadership and certain key customers. Usually takes about an hour. And Jennifer said, you got 30 minutes, be brief, be bright, and be gone. I said, well, I can do 1 and I can do 3. I'll work on 2. So anyway, what I'd like to do today is really talk to you a little bit about the threats, the cyber security threats. You obviously are hearing a lot of presentations today about technology and big data. My presentation is not on technology. It's on the adversary. It's on those people that are trying to interfere with and disrupt your businesses along the way. So with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of some thoughts on what that is, who they are, why they are doing that, and then you can decide what the risk profile for your company is as you go forward and how you're going to protect that. So with that, if we'll go to just the first slide here, just in case some of you in the audience don't know who CenturyLink is, we're a Tier 1 ISP. We got about 500,000 square miles of the backbone of the internet worldwide, 58 data centers. The slide says 56, but we've added 2 more. About 13 million customers, and we have a broad line of business both at the consumer, commercial, federal government level, as well as managed security services. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. I really want to focus on the threat. A lot of times when you're a chief information security officer or a chief security officer, your ability to protect your organization is directly, obviously, related to your communication skills on answering for the board of directors, why does this matter? Why should I be funding an information security program, and to what level? And they're asking that question from a couple of different points of view. One is, as you know, your board has a governance, risk, and compliance responsibility, and they're looking at how do they manage the enterprise assets in a way that best brings back shareholder value. If you think about some of the recent guidance we've been provided by the Securities and Exchange Commission on what they call material risk used to be focused on many things such as disruptive technology, financial matters, but today when you file your 10Q and your 10K, you're actually having to address material risks as it relates to your network security. And so more and more, you have SEC focus on you if you're a publicly traded firm. Even if you're a startup, like many are in this room, think about one of the possible outcomes if you're successful. One of the possible outcomes will be that you get acquired by a major corporation with the capabilities of taking what you've created really around the world. When that opportunity for M&A activity occurs, you will have companies that have members like my team that come in, and we're going to assess your cybersecurity, your information security program. We want to be sure that what we're acquiring through the process, whether it's intellectual property or talent, but in particular intellectual property, if that already has not been stolen. What I have found many times when we go in to acquire a new company, great technology, great people, very little thought to security along the way. And so now we're giving back our feedback on due diligence around what is the level of confidence that this intellectual property, however great it may be, has not been compromised already. And when you look at the threat actors and how they profile companies, it's a very real risk to all of us in corporate America. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the private-public partnerships. You hear that a lot in the industry today. What really are they? Who are they with? Are they working? Do they need to be improved? Just to give you, I think I'm kind of restating what all of us know. I just kind of aggregated this to give you the various points of view. If you think about what's going on and you have the director of the FBI saying in testimony before Congress as well as some other speeches that there's only 2 types of companies out there today. those who've been breached and know it, and those who've been breached and don't know it. That's how prolific the bad actors are. So if you think about the resources that the FBI is devoting to cybersecurity, the resources that the Department of Defense is devoting, the articles that we all see in the Wall Street Journal about Target breach, Nordstrom's, and the like, it is a very significant problem. And if you're leading your organizations today, just as you look at joint ventures or where you're going to get your next funding tranche, you really want to focus on the risk to your corporation from a cybersecurity perspective, because it's very real. Again, a lot of people think about, particularly if you grew up in the information security world, you thought about what we call defense in depth, right? Blocking and tackling. Spyware, you know, you're trying to prevent malware, phishing schemes, and all the things you do around having managed firewall services. But the reality of it is that defense in depth approach does not work any longer. And the reason it doesn't work is it's been studied by the adversary, and they know exactly how to get around it. Many of the times when you do a review of a data breach incident and you'll look at the after action and how they got into the network, you'll find they had all the standard best practice information security program tools, skill sets, and they still got breached. You know, why is that? And the reason for that is, quite frankly, defense in depth, while certainly necessary, helps you with your blocking and tackling, it is not enough to defeat the adversaries that you're currently facing. We categorize these adversaries into 5 areas: nation state, enterprise, criminal enterprises, terrorism, hacktivists, and the insider threat. And we're going to do a case study on each one of these. The point I want to make on these is they are as good, if not better, than your information security team. And they're a lot more motivated because they make their living on data breaches. It's very sophisticated. There's a lot of money behind it. There's a whole system that supports what they do. And if they don't make a breach and they don't get data, they don't make their money. In our case, our information security team members, they have paychecks, they go home at night, and live a very sustainable life by doing the basic blocking and tackling. So we're going to talk about these. First one I'd like to bring up is very close to home here in Pittsburgh. Back in May of 2014, the United States Department of Justice indicted 5 Chinese officers for breaching corporations here in Pittsburgh. Everything from U.S. Steel, Westinghouse, and others. What was interesting was in those breaches, they were breached for a variety of different reasons. Many people who are in the world of developing intellectual property think that that is the primary purpose of a breach, steal the formula for a particular product. The reality of it is, if you study these breaches closely, they were motivated, the Chinese, by very different concerns that they had. In one of these breaches, they did breach for intellectual property. In 2 of the breaches, they breached because they were in a trade dispute and they wanted their litigation strategy for the court system. And in another one, it was a joint venture agreement and they wanted their strategy for how they were going to negotiate. That's what's very important to know about the sophisticated actors who are in the advanced persistent threat world. They have broad-based objectives in breaching you. If you're in an M&A environment with them, they understand that you use law firms and accounting firms, and they will profile them, and they'll go after those firms to get your data. Obviously, if they're a nation state, many of these bad actors are overseas, and there's very little of a deterrent factor for them. They're not going to get arrested and extradited to the United States to face the U.S. court system. We have, as a litigious society, traditionally think that if somebody does something bad for me in the commercial world, I'll get my lawyer, we'll sue them in court. You don't have that capability in this environment. They're overseas. There's not mutual legal assistance treaties. They've already copied whatever it is you've worked so hard on, and now they're out in the market with it. And that is the big challenge here. You want to protect your data right from the beginning. You want to understand that they are going to come for it, and you also want to understand that they study the United States as the R&D capital of the world. And they have very specific requirements on what they want, from medical to pharmaceutical to other types of industries that they're trying to grow their industry in. And so it's either state-sponsored by a government hacker themselves, or by hackers independent of the government that are, it's kind of just generally accepted over in China and other countries that this is acceptable behavior. So when you talk about the advanced persistent threat, and that's a term that maybe surfaced about 2, maybe 3 years ago, it really is only surfacing in corporate America 2 or 3 years ago. The advanced persistent threat by the Chinese and other companies has been around for generations. They just did not focus their attention on corporate America. They historically focused their attention on the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, defense contractors, but not the U.S. government. And what they've decided to do now is to focus those resources on corporate America because they want to grow their economy, because a strong economy is in fact supporting national defense. When I talk about large-scale criminal enterprises, a lot of people have kind of the context of, in the Target breach, for example, some hacker in the Ukraine somehow got into a point-of-sale system in Target and got millions of dollars or millions of credit cards. The reality of it is the criminal hacking element, the straight criminal non-nation state, is a much more sophisticated organization or organizations than you might imagine. The analogy that I typically use is think of a drug cartel based out of Colombia. They have the resources to grow the drug, process the drug, transport the drug, get it into the United States and other countries, monetize the drug. That is exactly what's going on in the criminal elements today when it comes to intrusions for credit cards or other things that they can quickly turn into cash. There's malware writers. As you know, there's spammers out there. There's financial guys that show them how to monetize this. And as a result, that's why they're so good. The other reason they're so good is they study your supply chain. They have learned from the nation states how to study the supply chain. And in the case of the Target breach, they made their way into the Target network by way of the HVAC vendor, Fazio Mechanical, which is located here in Pittsburgh. And so the question that I've had and I've not yet gotten answered is really what was the methodology of the bad actor? Meaning, were they studying Target and decided that in studying them and reading the trade journals and looking at where Target was building their facilities, that Fazio Mechanical always got the HVAC contract. So now they know a vendor, and they go after the vendor. Was that their methodology? Or was Fazio Mechanical's network weak with vulnerabilities, and a bad actor compromised Fazio Mechanical on a drive-by drop-down with malware, and once they got in there, they said, hey, wait a minute, look at who their client base is. Let's see if we can do something here. So this is a big problem for everyone who has vendors, which we all do. You're only going to be as strong as your weakest link. And when you think of the vendors you use, whether they're onshore or offshore, their connectivity to your network, if their security protocols are not meeting a very high standard, you can get breached through your supply chain. The next one is more social engineering. This has to do with how you put out misinformation quickly. In this case, it was the AP hack, and they put out information about, the White House. I think you all probably saw it in the news. But the reason I use this example is think of the types of things that have happened to corporate America by way of bad press. If you recall the Tylenol event about 30 years ago, we still talk about it today. Now, Tylenol was real, meaning the product was corrupt, people were injured, lots of lawsuits, but they've learned from that how quickly you can influence the market by, in fact, putting out misinformation. If you're running a corporation, if you are dealing with the media, you're trying to get attention to your products and service to advance your business. If I'm a bad actor, because of all of the social media that is out there today, I can quickly put out misinformation, and now you're chasing gossip and untruth. If that is the potential, then what you want to think about, what are my crisis management plans and my crisis management, and specifically communication plans, if somebody decides to put either disinformation out on me, or at least grossly exaggerating a particular event. So you do want to think about these things because they can drive impact to your earnings. The next is insider. If you read a lot of your data breach reports and you really study breaches, about 52% of your breaches are from external bad actors. But 47 to 48% of your breaches are with insiders. And as a result, having an insider threat management program can be critical depending upon the type of company you are. If you're a defense contractor, if you're the Department of Defense, other agencies like the FBI, the CIA, they all have insider threat programs, pretty sophisticated, but even those programs, as we can see by this example with Snowden, are not able to catch every insider. What has happened in society today is, and think about the young generation that's coming up, and not to pick on the younger generation, but think about the generation that is coming up that we're hiring where they think everything that they do belongs to them when they're out at the workforce. And when they leave, they take it with them. A little bit just about CenturyLink and why we've built our program the way we have. We look at all of these information security risks, physical risks, other risks based upon technology and regulatory issues, and we put together an integrated corporate security program. At a high level, here's how we do it at CenturyLink. We've aggregated our information security teams, our physical security teams. We're a defense contractor for the United States government. So we have classified security teams. I have public policy teams, excuse me, and then people that actually sit at the Department of Homeland Security and other federal government agencies where we share information. To give you an example of corporations and government agencies that are not only our customers but our information sharing partners, all of these here from the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, FBI, they're all customers of CenturyLink. But at the same time, because we're a critical infrastructure, we share information with them. They provide us with threat information. Probably the best example of private-public partnership is we've developed a product at the behest, actually, of the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, called Enhanced Cybersecurity Services. The government came to us and actually said, look, we have specific threat information and intelligence and technology that we'd like to share with the general population of the United States, but they're not going to have the capability to maintain it. We actually did a pilot for the federal government, showed them how it worked, and they let us productize that to better protect critical infrastructures. It's actually mentioned by the President in some of his pronouncements back in February 2014 when he was restating the cybersecurity mission for the U.S. government and assigning charters to the FBI and Homeland Security and some of the other agencies. And again, I get back to my original premise. If you think about this problem, don't think about it from a technological perspective. Think about it from the adversary perspective, that you have people out there every day studying the industry journals, studying your companies. Where are you going to fit in the market? If you're a young startup trying to develop something that's going to work its way into the financial services industry, if I'm a bad actor, I'm going to compromise you now, watch you develop, and when you sell it to Citibank or Wells Fargo, I'll already be into the product and into the system. I'm better able to breach them. With that, I can answer any questions you might have. Questions? Comments?
So how have you seen the strategies evolve, even from like a defense strategy standpoint? You know, have you seen those technologies and those approaches for you know, securing, preventing, and responding to intrusions evolve? Is that enough to continue to mature, or is it still not going to be enough?
It still won't be enough. If you're relying on that defense in-depth approach, blocking and tackling, filtering, it's just not going to work, because there's ways around that. Some of the current and emerging defense technologies around identification, protection, and response are more based upon behavioral profiling of your network, of your devices. So let me just give you an example. There's profiling technology out there that if Dave Mahon comes in to work every day, he typically is coming in from the network from maybe a couple of different locations, maybe Denver, maybe Washington, D.C. And when Dave comes in the morning, he typically does a couple of things. He goes to his email, he opens up 1 or 2 Word documents, and he goes about his day. We all have a profile. Just like we use our credit card, just like we use our cell phone, we have a profile. If my profile is understood in the protection mechanisms, then if Dave Mahon comes in one morning and he's coming in from Florida, Puerto Rico, a place that maybe he traditionally isn't coming in from, I should alert that and say, you know, why is he coming in from there? But let's say all of a sudden in the first hour, this computer somehow is opening up files that rarely, if ever, get opened by Dave. And 500 of them or 400 of them. I should alert that in my CERT team. My CERT team should get into that device, look at where that traffic is going on the network, and find out whether I have a breach. The behavioral profiling of what goes on in your network is getting to be critical to defending against the bad actors. Other questions I might answer?
It seems pretty bleak. Would that be your assessment?
It is very bleak. And I'm going to tell you why. The internet was never designed to be secure, if you think about when it got started. Business processes were never designed with the idea that there would be 5 bad actors coming at you every day. It's kind of like saying we built the banking system down the street as a branch. We never expected to have bank robbers. So we didn't put locks on the doors. We didn't put surveillance systems in. We don't have safes. That's really what's happened here. And as you evolve, or we evolve through the use of technology to be it's part of our life today, this now can be monetized by others. And they're very good at it. Now, can we get ahead of the game? I think there's a lot of things that we can do. But if you look at what you heard today, where there's probably more internet connections than human beings today, and that's going to be a multiple of 5 in the next couple of years, today we worry about DOS attacks on banks that emanate from the Ukraine. You might have DOS attacks at the bank that emanates from your refrigerator because it's connected to the internet. You think about internet connectivity today and what that means. If everybody in this room had to go for one day without any of their devices, you tell me how your life would change for that day. That's the problem. It's become part of our ecosystem of living, and within that is all the valuable things that we own, from our medical records to our financial records to intellectual property. It's all been digitized, and there are people that want that information. Historically, there was physical barriers. You know, pre-internet, if the Chinese want to steal something from a major corporation, they probably had to come over here and get a job in that company and pass all the scrutiny of a background investigation, and then they had to physically get it out of the facility. Today, all they have to do is breach a network or breach one of your vendors that doesn't have possibly even near the security that you may have on the corporate network. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.